One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question. My guest today is Gene Boyd. Gene is currently the Executive Senior Associate Athletics Director at Arizona State University. Greetings, Gene. Thanks for joining us today.
Ty, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me on.
Now, Gene, I've known you for a while, and you've played a number of roles there at Arizona State. And the current title you have, Executive Senior Associate Athletics Director. Included in that is a number of different responsibilities you have. One of them is Chief of Staff, and the other is General Manager for this new structure that you guys have there at Arizona State. And that's what I want to ask you about, that General Manager position and the structure you have. It's a very unique setup, almost tying in the NFL. Tell us what the structure is, and then tell us the background in why that was put in place there.
Yeah, I'll answer those both simultaneously. What we've decided to do here is to blend best practices from some of the professional business model that Ray Anderson in particular, with some of his background, has been involved with and engaged with. We have access to some insight to that model, and blending that with amateur athletics in a way that creates more efficiency, more synchronicity, if you will, between a Power 5 level of football operations and an athletic program that is wanting to be amongst the top 10 in the country holistically year in and year out, so that those things don't operate independently of each other under an umbrella, but that there is a lot of synergy between those two different pieces. So it's really a blended approach of again, taking best practices from professional business models and professional sport with everything that's whole and sound and good within the college athletic framework.
Okay, and so going into the minutia of it, your responsibility as general manager. So is there a personnel person? Are there people who are responsible for different aspects? Looking at the NFL model, are there people who are responsible for those different aspects of it?
So in our blended approach, we are looking at a football coach as a CEO of football operations, if you will,
okay,
who is really focused on developing young men both as excellent athletes and as men off the field, and trying to set up systems around him with both personnel and systems that focus on many of the things that go into how you do that as a coach, so branding and marketing, the facilities, our uniform combinations. I mean, some of these things, you get to the minutia of running a Power 5 conference football program. People have talked a lot about how coaches have become CEOs in these Power 5 environments, but the more that you put on the coach's plate to manage, the less focus there is on the things that coaches are most passionate about and what we bring them into these leadership roles to do. And so what we're aiming for is empowering our CEO for football operations, our head coach, to do the things that he's best at, and then, of course, seek his input as we surround him with dynamic individuals, like you said, in player personnel and player engagement and development, in marketing, when you talk about player personnel, that includes recruiting, and really addressing those things on an administrative level that's in sync, and not separate. If you look at the evolution of college football over the past 30 to 35 years, and you think about, the separate facilities, the separate football facilities, literally, that are separated from the athletic department where the AD resides, football operations centers that almost become independent functioning athletic programs in and of themselves with their own strength staff, own athletic training staff, even marketing and graphic design and all those kind of things are being run out of football. Sometimes you can get, things merging that are outside of necessarily the framework of the general overall athletic program's direction, if you will. And so, this is a way that in the general manager role, someone who is on the senior administration is in lockstep with all of the different ongoings in the football space in a way where there's synchronicity.
Okay. So you want to let the football coach, right?
Absolutely.
What I know about the structure of an NFL franchise is there's two sides of the office, right? Football operations and there's business. And here, business is basically the athletics department doing what the athletic department does. And then the football operations, obviously coach is going to have input in who the coaches are going to go out and recruit. He's going to do the things that coaches do, but making his job much more easy, taking the stresses of all the other things off of his plate. Now, how would that affect when it comes to speaking to donors or alumni or fan bases and those kind of things? I'd imagine that's probably still part of it. He's still the face of the football program.
Absolutely. So traditionally, that piece of the puzzle and others that would fall into a traditional mindset of a head football coach, there's some donor relations that is a piece of that puzzle as well, but not necessarily having the coach have to think about who the appropriate donors are and, how many speaking engagements that he needs to have or not, but trying to have the professionals who live in those spaces to really take care of the day-to-day and minutia, master planning of that, and then incorporating him, of course, into the strategic planning for it. But he just has less responsibility to be in command of the logistics of those things.
Right.
I'd give another example. There's a salary pool for assistant coaches, and every institution, doesn't matter if you're Power 5 or not, you have this salary pool. Well, our example would be that, the general manager, the chief financial officer, and we have a gentleman that does a lot of analytics. That group would look at best practices, national trends, Pac-12 conference averages and those types of things, and be able to assemble a pool in which we're extremely competitive in our league, but that, the coach doesn't have to get into negotiating and all those types of things. We take care of that. And in fact, we have the conversations, with the assistants about, where we're slotted and what it looks like. And then, of course, you take into consideration things like tenure and achievements and accomplishments. And at the end of the day, coach is going to certainly weigh in. And if, we've made an offer that coach may think we need to have a little bit more, dollars or cents on it, that conversation happens. But we found that the coaches have been pretty free to continue to recruit and do the other things that are important in that time of year, and administratively we've been able to manage that, with his sign off.
What about the peripheral groups, right? You mentioned recruiting earlier. That whole recruiting aspect, how was that set up?
Yeah, and in essence, if you think about a Fortune 500 company and having a board structure, we've got our university president, of course, who weighs in heavily on everything that we do. Ray Anderson is our vice president for university athletics, but he would kind of be like akin to a president in a professional model, for a sports program. And then, we've talked about the general manager and an assistant general manager, which we also have. And the head coach is obviously a part of that grouping as well. Absolutely. So that leadership structure is looking at the entire program in relation to our competitors and our peers, in relation to our aspirational peers, and who's performing at the highest level. And that group is collectively talking through, analyzing, making decisions across the board in the football structure in a way where there's engagement and, you don't have to have situations where you suddenly need $250,000 for some technology because you're getting left behind, and then, the athletic director's going, hey, well, where was this on the radar? Well, it's been on the radar all along because this board structure has been looking at these issues throughout.
It sounds like it's kind of infusing the head coach of football in making sure the line of communications are always open, right? It's not operating as a unit that's just out there doing its own thing. It's we're all a part of this with the head coach and sign off on knowing what's best for the specific team. But in terms of all the peripherals, let's all take a look at it and figure out how we can move forward to make sure we're competing at the highest level and staying where we need to stay relative to our competitors.
That's a really good summary statement, Ty, as it relates to operationally how this board structure, if you will, functions.
And that's part one of our interview with Gene Boyd, Executive Senior Associate Athletics Director at Arizona State University. And this is Ty Brown signing off. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.